Hey guys, welcome back. Thank you so much for clicking on today's video. I am so freaking excited because we are doing something I haven't done in a hot minute, and that is where basically I'm going to sit down, put on a full face of makeup, and tell you guys a story. So normally, sorry, that was just my gross old makeup napkin there. So normally I would do this with a true crime story. However, today is going to be a little bit different. I'm also very excited to be filming right now, so please ignore me if I start getting like real crazy. Haven't filmed in a while. So normally I would do this with true crime. However, there is this story that has just been on my noggin this past like 2 weeks, and I can't stop thinking about it, and I just need to talk about it. Okay, so I'm gonna start putting on makeup because I'm gonna be talking for a hot minute. So basically, there is this picture. I will put it right here so you understand the context. I saw this picture so many times when I was growing up in every history class I had. At the point where we got to the Great Depression, this photo was somewhere in that textbook, and I never saw any sort of context to it or follow-up, or this is a total normal thing that happened all the time. Like, I never knew any information about it. It was just like the picture was there, it said what was happening, and we moved on. And that never really bothered me until a couple of weeks ago. I don't know if I like saw the photo somewhere, or I really don't know what happened, but for some reason this instance popped into my head and I have not been able to stop thinking about it. So I started like researching this family and these kids because I needed to know, I needed to know what was happening in this. So I started researching and I had to tell you guys this story, basically. So this is the story of the technically five Chalifoe, I'm pretty sure that's how you say their last name, Chalifoe children who were sold in the Great Depression by their parents, and basically how they got to that point, and then what happened to them afterwards. So basically, as you can see in the picture, which I'll put it up here again, there are 4 children sitting on a stoop, and their mother is behind them, hiding her face from the photographer. We assume it's because she's, embarrassed of the fact that she's got this sign in her yard stating that she's selling her children, because it's probably not a great feeling to have to put your children up for sale. But there is a massive sign in her yard stating 4 children for sale, inquire within. They, at this time, are living in Chicago, Illinois, and it is 1948. This photo was taken by a photojournalist, and honestly, it kind of went viral, which is why it's still a thing today to see it pretty regularly. It was posted in a bunch of different news articles, and after it came out, really, the family got a lot of like outside support. People were setting up charities for them, people were offering jobs, like it was a big thing. So at this point, the family is the mother, Lucille, who is 24 years old, the father, Ray, who is 40 years old, the 4 children, Lana, Ray, Milton, and Sue Ellen. And then Lucille is actually pregnant at the time with a 5th child. Ray is a coal truck driver, and he is unfortunately out of a job due to the Great Depression. Pretty much everything shut down at that point, as we know. So they were facing eviction from their apartment and really had no means to take care of their family or take care of these 4, now 5 children that had mouths to feed. And so they decided to put up this sign stating that they were going to be selling the children. Now, we don't really know how long this sign was actually in their yard. There are certain family members of Lucille and Ray who stated for a very long time that they were paid to stage that photo, and the sign was immediately taken down. And then there's others that say that it was up for years, and that's just how it was. But like I said, after this photo came out and all the articles started pouring out from the newspapers, people in the Chicago area and even farther out were offering help. They were setting up charities, they were sending money, they were offering jobs, and none of this really came into fruition. Neither of them accepted any of the job offers. Nobody really knows where the money went to. The one thing we do know, though, is that those children were sold. So like I said, the children were Lana, who was age 6, Ray, who was 5, Milton was 4, and Sue Ellen was 2. And then, like I said, there was another child that was, at this point, unborn. He would eventually be born and named Bedford. So the photo was taken in 1948, and within the 2 years following that photo, all of the children would be sold. So Ray Ann, who, like I said, was 5 when this photo was taken, she was sold at the age of 7 for $2, which in 1950, $2 in today's money is worth about $20. So basically, imagine selling your child for $20. It's a McDonald's meal, basically. Which I'm sure was a ton of money back then. Just in the Great Depression, any money was a ton of money, I'm sure, but still, it was $2. Her brother Milton was also taken in by this same family due to the fact that when they came to get Rayanne, he was crying hysterically next to her, and so out of pity, I guess, they ended up taking him as well. However, there's no, like, they don't believe that he was actually paid for, which is just such a weird thing to say. They don't think they paid any extra for him. They think he just came along like they were a little package deal. The family that ended up taking them in was John and Ruth Zoetman. They were farmers in Demotte, Indiana, so quite a bit further away. There are no papers or anything proving that they were adopted or sold or there was any sort of legal exchange of these children. However, yearbook pictures and later obituaries, wow, that was a hard word to get out, for the family do prove that their names were changed to Beverly and Kenneth Zoetman. The story that Rayanne and Milton tell of their childhood is nothing short of horrific. They were beaten, starved, chained up in the family's barn, and treated like literal slaves on the farm. The Zoetman home was cold and unloving, and Milton tells a story about the first day that they were taken to their new home. He was chained up and beaten, and when he asked why, John Zoetman told him, "You need to fear me in order to love me and obey me." Rayanne's story was even more horrifying, honestly. At the age of 16, she was actually kidnapped and held and raped by somebody. They couldn't really find any details on this, but that happened, and this actually resulted in her becoming pregnant. The Zoetmans were horrified that she was pregnant. Basically, that's literally all they cared about, was the fact that she was 16, unwed, and pregnant, not the fact that she was kidnapped and raped. So when they found out, they actually sent her to a boarding home for unwed mothers, where she gave birth to a little girl. And when she came back to the Zoetman house afterwards, they arranged for the little girl to be taken from Rayanne and adopted out without her permission, without her really even knowing it was happening, which was awful, and she ended up running away at the age of 17. Like I said, Milton was not spared the same abuse that Rayanne was given up until about his high school time period. After social services ended up actually taking Milton away from the Zoatmans, he was placed in the care of a friend's family, and this is where he actually, for the first time, learned that, one, the Zoatmans were not his real parents, and that they would technically be considered foster parents because, like I said, there were no legal papers on him being adopted or anything like that. So this was really the first time that he became aware of this whole weird situation that happened. Unfortunately, after all of the incredible abuse that he suffered as a child, he really struggled with violent outbursts. And after a particularly bad fight where police ended up getting involved and Milton ended up assaulting one of those police officers, I think I read that he actually like threw him into a tree, which, wow, gotta have some anger to throw a human being. Milton was placed in a mental institution. So basically he went in front of a judge, and the judge told him that he was a menace to society and offered him either the mental institution or a reform school, which Milton had heard some particularly horrifying stories about the reform school, so he chose the mental hospital. This is where he was eventually diagnosed with schizophrenia and put on medication to help him handle that. He was released in 1967, and he ended up moving to Chicago and got married. Once he married, though, his in-laws actually convinced them that they needed to leave Chicago, so they gave the newlywed couple $500, and they ended up moving to Tucson, where they would settle down and have their family. Okay, I went ahead and did my brows because honestly those just take forever. By the way, I'm literally just doing like my everyday makeup routine, so this is not going to be any sort of intricate look. I'm literally not even going to do eyeshadow. Sorry, guys. So anyways, back to the story. So, Bedford Shalafo was the unborn child at the time of the photo was taken. He was born in 1949, and he was legally adopted. There are papers to prove that he was legally adopted to Harry and Luella McDaniel, who changed his name to David McDaniel. And he was in pretty much awful shape when they got him. He had only been with Lucille for, I think they said like 8 or 9 months before he was adopted, and he was covered in bed bug bites, regular bug bites. He was malnourished. He was not a healthy baby at this point. They officially took custody of him in 1950, and they raised him in what was actually a very loving, supportive, happy home. Besides the fact that they were fairly strict, they raised him with good Christian morals and values, and he never really had a rough childhood. What was interesting about him was he actually, the family he ended up with, lived just about 2 miles down the street from the Zoatmans. So he was actually able to ride his bike, or sometimes a horse, he said, down to the farm to visit with Rayanne and Milton. The McDaniels were very open with him about his history and his original family, and they were the ones that actually told him that Rayanne and Milton, or Beverly and Kenneth, were actually his siblings, and he actually ended up telling them that, so that's how they all kind of met. He found out that they were brothers and sisters, and he basically wrote down there and was like, I'm your brother, what's up? He actually, on many occasions, would actually go down there and untie them from the barn and let them free before running away. There was actually one story he told about one time John Zoetman caught him untying the children, and he followed him all the way home and was basically trying to create a physical altercation with him when he was a child, and David's father had to come out and physically stop him from attacking him because he was literally a child. So really just tells you what kind of person this John Zoetman was. Although David said that he did grow up in a very happy, loving home, he was a very rebellious teenager, as lots of people are, and he actually ended up running away when he was 16 to join the military. He ended up in the Vietnam War, and when he came back, he actually ended up reconnecting with Rayanne, and they kept close over the years. They saw each other multiple times. Not much is known about Lana. When the siblings were still alive, they were slowly trying to connect with her adoptive family on social media and trying to learn her story, but obviously that's a very hard and slow process. Most of the articles that I could find were from about 2013, and Sue Ellen passed a few weeks after most of those came out. But they were, trying to learn more about her. It just wasn't really known. Sue Ellen did believe that she was legally adopted. She was, fairly certain of that idea. She was taken in by the Johnson family, and actually grew up near her birth family's home there in South Chicago. So she didn't go too far like the other ones did, ending up in Indiana. She died in 2013, like I said, from lung disease, just weeks after only her second time meeting Rayanne, her sister. Rayanne and her son actually drove to the facility that Sue Ellen was staying in her last few weeks to have that chance to talk to her and, really feel like they reconnected and have some sort of connection with her sister before she passed. All of the children at one point or another did end up reconnecting with their birth mother. Sorry, I need a second to do this. So, like I said, all of the children at one point or another during their lives did have the chance to reconnect with their birth mother, and all of them had the same story. She was cold and unloving and expressed no regret or bad feelings about selling her children. She really seemed like she just could not care less that that happened to them or what happened to them afterwards. Most of the children had the same thing to say, and that was, screw her, I hate her, she deserves anything bad that came to her during her life. Sue Ellen actually on her deathbed said that she hopes she's burning in hell, which, same girl, but the only one that really almost defended her was David. He said basically that he didn't feel like he could judge her. He felt like she was doing what she could with the cards that life gave her, and he thinks that she was actually thinking of the children when she chose to give them up. He just, you know, says, you know, there's no way she could have known that they would have been dealt such a hard hand in life from what happened. City records do show that Ray, her husband, left her shortly after David was born. He never met his birth father. The city record actually literally said that she was living on city help due to the fact that Ray left her and never returned because of a criminal record against him, and basically it means that there was a warrant out for his arrest and he never went home because he didn't want to be arrested, which is kind of shitty to leave your wife like that. And he was never seen again. Lucille, their mother, did end up remarrying later in life and had 4 more daughters, which she ended up keeping them. And yeah. So that is basically the story of the Chalifoe children and what happened to them after they were sold due to the Great Depression and bad family situations. I hope you guys liked today's video. If you like this style of video still and you want to see me do more of them, please let me know down in the comments and leave any stories or cases or anything like that you would want me to cover. But other than that, I hope you guys will hit that subscribe button and stick around for the rest of my videos. Bye!